Now we've woken up today and this is our last full day, and we're still indecisive about what exactly we are going to do. There are two possibilities. One is to visit a sort of wetland centre in the afternoon for a bird sanctuary which is on the coast, which sort of fitted really, I suppose, with our plans to go to St Anne's, but we don't think that St Anne's is going to be, like Blackpool, open really this time of year. And of course it's all outdoors and the weather is not good again. It's been on and off all week. It's really been showers mostly, but when the showers come they're like sort of little hailstorms. So we may end up zipping up the motorway to Lancaster because there is a priory and a castle to be seen there. So we're not really sure at the moment. I'm just waiting to see what happens really. Now with Friday, again there was three possibilities with Friday. Friday the checkout here is quite early and everybody else is going straight home, and I of course could get a lift with them home. However, there's one thing that I haven't been able to visit, and that's Preston and Manchester, which I sort of had wanted to do. And so my first thought was, well, perhaps I could go to Preston and then on to St Anne's to see what's going on there, and then home via Blackpool. The issue with that is that it's quite a long way and quite a lot to do in one day, really. So I pretty much settled on the third option, which was going to Preston, but then going from Preston to Manchester to see Manchester Cathedral before sort of coming home across the Pennines, because that's far quicker. So I think I shall probably do that on Friday, but again, not sure at this moment in time, so there we are. So the last day of the tour began with the last crash. It's different because it's funny, crash was more enjoyable during the last tour because the babies were smaller. They couldn't move around so much, and we actually had to like feed them and stuff like that. Whereas now, they are actually able to sort of entertain themselves and to play, and they just really need somebody in the room. The other thing is that they're also pretty much able to feed themselves once sort of breakfast is provided, and because we have at least one parent with two different children, the chances are, you know, we might get one, or we might get the other, or we might get both, or we might get nothing, you know. So I didn't find Krish quite as enjoyable as last time, I have to admit, but there we are. The children themselves are more interesting because they can obviously interact with you more. You know, Caitlin sometimes, sorry, not Caitlin, Caitlin can't interact by speech. She can't speak yet, obviously. Bethany can, but often doesn't. And Cohen is about 6 months ahead of where he should be talking. He's able to string sentences together and repeat stuff he's heard pretty much first time. The diction may not be perfect, but he knows what he's trying to say, and whilst the words come out possibly a bit slurred, if you concentrate you can understand what he's saying now. They were going to go to some bird sanctuary somewhere, but I think they decided against that, whereas we were at one point going to go to St Anne's, but St Anne's is a bit like a posher Blackpool further south, but we weren't sure that it was going to be open or particularly good weather. So I suggested Lancaster simply because I know nothing about Lancaster. I was fully expecting everybody to say no, far too far away. And in mileage, it is. but because there's a motorway that runs up that side, we were able to get there in about half an hour. So we made excellent time. We left at 11 to get there for lunch, and we had lunch in Merchant's, something like 1688, which is a merchant wine cellar, set of cellars, converted into an eatery. And it's very, very lovely inside indeed, and the food is fantastic. Bit on the pricey side, I felt, financially, but very good. It's also within a stone's throw of the castle and the priory. Now, the castle, you can look at the grounds and you can walk around the outside. There is a gift shop there and a restaurant, but we didn't feel it was that inviting. There is a guided tour you can take of half of it, but the other half is actually being used presently as a prison, which is bizarre. What's more bizarre is round the back there's a part of the castle which has been converted into Lancaster Crown Court. The Crown Court is actually part of the castle, the original castle, as is the prison. It's a small prison as HMPs go, but it's nevertheless, it is a working one. It was also a bit obscured because possibly one of the other big sights for us to see was the gatehouse for the castle, which was undergoing repairs and so covered in scaffolding. It was also not exactly easy access because although it was on the flat in terms of having no particular steps, it was definitely uphill, and cobbles, and you know, my nan in a wheelchair, it was like pushing a cannon up a steep hill. I mean, it was bizarre, but we did that. And then my parents and my nan went to look for a shop to see if they could get some cover for the wheelchair, and they happened on a little almshouse with a little chapel. Meanwhile, I went and did the nearby priory. Now, the nearby priory was on the site of a Norman construction for a church. It was made proper by its acceptance as a Benedictine monastery. That, however, was funded by a church in France, and when Henry Tudor won the War of the Roses, he did not want he wanted orders in England to be run from English places, so he basically told them to leave, and what he did was he invited a sort of English group of people to set up a community there. When later on Henry VIII went through his phase of dissolving monasteries, I think because there had been such favour taken to the church by Henry Tudor, first Henry Tudor, who I think was Henry V, but I could be wrong. Henry VIII spared it, and it basically has been a sort of royal chapel ever since. It's called a priory, and it is the size of a proper sort of cathedral. There was also a Roman bathhouse nearby. Again, not a lot of it. What did we do then? Then I walked down the hill and I walked across the area that was pedestrianised, saw the market square, in which there was a free museum. This museum's downstairs was undergoing renovation, but it was free, and the upstairs alone was worthy of that, really. half of it upstairs was a military chapel. So that was, sorry, not a military chapel, but a military museum. So that was interesting to look around. After that, I headed over towards what I knew was on the other side, which was a surprise. We only knew that because we had seen a signpost for it. There is a Roman Catholic cathedral in Lancaster, St. Peter's. So I headed over towards that, passing sort of the town hall, the civic area of the city. And I must admit I didn't like St. Peter's. Inside it's very dark, very gothic. The windows are very thin and they're all stained glass, so there's not that much light. The light inside is on gilt and wood, and the rear address at the end is really big, dark and imposing. I didn't like it. I found it a bit sinister, was the word that came to mind. Anyway, then met back up with my parents back across the pedestrianised zone, and we went to a edgy sort of coffee bar, which was nice, before we took the car home, and we finished up getting a big McDonald's for everybody because this is our last night, so we didn't really want to be cooking anything. Now this evening we're pretty much all taking it in turns to have a last go into the hot tub now that all the children are in bed and asleep. Tomorrow everybody goes home. I believe they're going straight home, and the checkout time is 10 o'clock. I, on the other hand, have decided that I'm going to go and check out Preston on the bus, Preston and Manchester. Then I'm somehow going to get from there to Manchester, which is not that far, look around Manchester Cathedral, and then head home on the Transpennine Express, which I know very well because I used to use quite a lot in going to and from Liverpool, which is sort of a station beyond that, if you like, beyond Manchester. So that's basically what we're doing this evening. It's been a good holiday. I have enjoyed it, if a bit bitty, partly because I've been reliant on other people to take me places rather than doing it myself. But no, what we've done has been brilliant, and I feel that we have covered everything that I wanted to, so there we are. Time for a last splash in that hot tub.